Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Apparently, former President Trump was not happy with the elections last week. Jimmy Kimmel said, they say the last time Trump was this disappointed was when Eric was born. Trevor Noah said, it's being reported that Trump is blaming Melania for pushing him to endorse Dr. Oz, saying it was not her best decision. Trevor said, yeah, and I'm sure in response, Melania was like, yeah, it's true. I'm very bad at picking men. Kimmel said, it might even be her second worst decision. Trump is so angry at Melania, they're no longer sleeping in separate beds. Joe Rogan got melancholy on his podcast. He apparently holds regret for not refilling Anthony Bourdain's glass of beer. Bert Kreischer was the guest, and Bert signaled that his glass was empty. Joe kind of drifted off and was like, oh, sorry, and then talked about the Bourdain incident, and he told Bert Kreischer, to this day, Anthony Bourdain asked for a beer once on the show we did, and I didn't realize that's what he asked for. He was just like looking at his beer, and it was empty, and I didn't get him another beer. Rogan said, isn't that weird? Still bothers me. Like I should have got a beer, but I was in the middle of talking. Rainn Wilson has changed his name to Rainfall Heatwave Extreme Winter Wilson. There's a big environmental summit called the COP27, and Rainfall Heatwave Extreme Winter Wilson said, with the help of my scientist friends at Arctic Base Camp, I've changed my name. This is not a joke. I'm as serious as the melting Arctic, which amplifies global risks, including extreme weather events around the globe. I'm hoping this name change brings attention to this growing, melting issue. We need world leaders at COP27 to take notice and take action. The Arctic is melting at millions of liters per second, and yet this problem can't seem to make a name for itself, so it's up to us to make a name for it. Rainfall Heatwave Extreme Winter Wilson serves as a board member of Arctic Base Camp, a group of Arctic explorers who brought their knowledge to various major global gatherings. Rainfall Heatwave Extreme Winter Wilson's co-star Mindy Kaling, she was out a few years back with BJ Novak. They were at dinner in L.A. Kaling was pregnant with her daughter, who's now 4. Kaling told People, the most genuinely scary situation I've ever been in when I was 8.5 months pregnant. I went to dinner with my friend BJ Novak. He parked the car and we got out of the car and noticed there was a weird guy staring at us from the parking meter. The guy was like, hey, love you guys on The Office. Then we walked down to go to the restaurant. The restaurant's closed for whatever reason. Then we walk back to the car. And when we walk back to the car, what we think is the car, we're like, oh, that's probably not it because there's somebody sitting in the driver's seat and we keep walking. And then they realized, no, that was the car. Mindy said, we go back to the car. The guy we had talked to by the meter had gotten into BJ's car, was sitting in the driver's seat and had BJ's laptop open and was on the laptop, which is so strange. He didn't try to steal his stuff. They decided to confront the man. Kaling went to the driver's side door and blocked it so the guy couldn't escape. She told Jimmy Kimmel, my sense of justice was greater than my sense of wanting to live. And then BJ Novak went to their side and was like, what'd you take? The guy kept looking over the door to try to get out. I was sitting there like, you're not going anywhere. Finally, BJ got his laptop back and all of his stuff, and he nodded to me like, you can open the door and let him out. When the guy got out of the car, he told Mindy and BJ, you guys should be careful. Anybody could just get into your car. Mindy laughed and said, as though the whole thing had just been like a ruse. He had planned to teach us a valuable lesson. By the way, it did teach us a valuable lesson. Then he kind of wandered away. A lot of people wonder what the deal is with Mindy and BJ. Back in 2014, BJ Novak told People, Mindy is a really complicated person and a really complicated friendship, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. In 2019, Kaling told CBS Sunday Morning, it isn't the thing that people sometimes think it is, but he's really part of my family now, which is great. Even though that's less of a sexy characterization of our relationship, I think it's a deeper and closer one. The Guardian was watching the new season of Inside Amy Schumer, and they didn't like it, so get mad at the Guardian. Don't get mad at me. They used an example. Take Colorado, a sketch from the premiere in which Amy Schumer stars in a fake tourism advertisement for a state with lax abortion laws. The sketch has the sheen of comedy, lines such as, I could have gone to a city in Texas that has a super chill DA, if you know what I mean, but fails to deliver laughs. It's barely even a distortion. There's nothing surprising, let alone funny, when the punchline is that things are as bad as you know them to be. Take another sketch, O Week, one of the few to not feature Amy Schumer, in which a college RA prepares freshmen during orientation by handing out increasingly deranged goodie bag favors such as rape whistles, mace, swords, and declaring every girl out for herself. There's nothing revelatory about pointing out that college campuses are a hotbed for sexual assault. If anything, the skit feels like it's responding to 2014. Amy and her writers haven't found the right recipe in topical or political humor either. SNL's hit this wall for years with its cold opens, whose main revelation has been seeing which celebrities are most game for impressions. Boy, we really saw that on last week's Amy Schumer hosted SNL. That opening sketch was terrible. The Guardian wraps with, when the intended response seems to be a nod of recognition rather than a cackle, maybe the jokes have run out of road. Well, we've reached the final day of the New York Comedy Festival. I have found it to be extremely underwhelming, and when I was having insomnia last night, I was thinking about how this really compared to the Netflix festival, and it's night and day. I mean, I don't even see like major headliners at this thing. Yes, there's a ton of shows, but it's like there's too many shows and the shows are too small. A lot of these things feel like they belong at Just for Laughs Toronto, which is a different kind of festival, but this is New York City, baby. Where's, Jerry? So here's the lineup for today. Caroline's The Jackie Mason Musical. I told you about that probably about a week ago. Caveats has Famously Dumped Live. Union Hall has Business, Casual, and Friends. Liz Barrett records an album at the New York Comedy Club. New York Comedy Club also has a show called I Found My People. Sesh Comedy has The Downside with Gianmarco Ceresi. I saw him up at Montreal. Fantastic. Another name to keep an eye on, he's at Town Hall today, Nurse Blake. He does nurse-based comedy, and you're like, what? This thing is quietly huge. So he's on the PTO tour. That's at Town Hall today. Triplet Auditions is at the Brooklyn Comedy Collective. Littlefield has Daniel Simonson and Jake Schick do comedy. $1 Million Roasting at The Stand. No names there that you're likely to recognize. Purple Park Comedy at QED. Casey Frey and Friends at Caroline's. Queer Window at the Brooklyn Comedy Collective. Boardwalk Comedy with Luke Amonis and Tommy McNamara. That's at the Gutter. Rachel Pegram, Messy Yet Tight. I see what you did there. Union Hall. Alex English is at Chelsea. Adam Newman's The World is Ending and We're All Gonna Die is at the New York Comedy Club. Mariposas Comedy at the Stonewall. Don't Tell Comedy at Pedal House. Cootie Gang at the Stand. Crowdwork the Comedy Show at Brooklyn Comedy Club. Old Man Hustle presents Rufat Agayev at Old Man Hustle. Olestra at the Brooklyn Comedy Collective. Constantelis does an hour at the Tiny Cupboard. Exposure Therapies at Club Cumming. Comedy Fight Club. Well, we don't talk about that. That's one of the rules. That's at the Stand. Uncle Function is at Asylum. Jared Goldstein and Friends at Littlefield. And Stand Up on the Spot at the New York Comedy Club. That's a lot of shows for a Sunday. I didn't mention any headliners. Exactly. Weird festival this year. I don't know what's going on there. What opens today is Mike Birbiglia's Broadway show. It's been in previews. Today it's officially opening. The idea for the show has been in development since 2018. It sprang from Mike's annual medical checkup in 2017. His results on a breathing test were so weak that his doctor thought he might be having a heart attack right there, right then. Wow. Birbig's father and grandfather both had heart attacks at 56. That inspired Mike to improve his health. This show's about trips to the YMCA pool, as well as an encounter with an unclothed older man in the locker room when Mike was 7. Birbig says, I'm in much better shape now. I do cardio 5 days a week. I'm experimenting with the idea of riding a bike from my apartment in Brooklyn to Lincoln Center every day for these shows. And from Yahoo, a Chinese-based comedian faced backlash from Chinese netizens after her stand-up comedy set on Australia's Got Talent went viral. He Huang, 32-year-old comedian, said, my name is He. It's spelled H-E, and that's it. Yes, it's my name. It's not my pronoun. She said she was made in China before deadpanning about the coronavirus. Look, guys, I'm really sorry for the COVID. I'm sorry for it, but I didn't do it. I was here in Australia the whole time. Last year I was roaming around the city. This guy just yelled at me. He was like, yo, go back to China. I was like, sir, there's no flight. Good joke. Chinese netizens were angered by her jokes on taboo topics. They hurled insults at her, calling her disgusting and a slop bucket. One user wrote, COVID is the suffering of all mankind. You shouldn't make fun of that. Huang told Slate, I'm mostly getting a lot of negativity. I think I'm just making jokes, but people are taking it really seriously, especially in China. They're really offended by me, but I'm a comedian. Taking hits is part of the job. And that's your comedy news for today. There's an audio-only version on YouTube. You can follow the show there or on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll talk about Dave Chappelle's Saturday Night Live. Yikes.